Hi everyone, my name is Selena and thanks for watching. This is part two in the videos that I'm sharing all the books that I read in the school year for fun. I did another video where I talked about the books that I read for pleasure the first half of the school year, so you can go watch that. This is the second half of the year, so these are the books that I read starting probably around December and on to the end of the school year. These again are books for pleasure, for fun. They don't have anything really connected to my classroom or my pedagogy. So I'm just gonna get started. And if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. Oh yeah, and I did read a lot of these books via audio, so I don't have a lot of books to show, but I will leave the information about the books down below so that you can go find them for yourself on Goodreads or something like that. So let's get started. The first book that I read, or listened to rather, was Bluescreen by Dan Wells. I listened to this book to and from Toronto. I went to AERA, which is a conference for educators. And so I listened to this book while I was there, going there, and then as I was flying back. It was fine. It's a YA novel. It's a very typical YA. I feel like I've been saying this a lot about YA literature. I just feel like it's hitting all the YA beats. I'm thinking I'm falling out of love with YA, which is new for me because I generally enjoy YA literature, but I think something about it, I don't know, maybe it's a phase, but I'm not a big fan of YA, which makes me more hesitant to judge it because I feel like I'm looking at it from a biased perspective. So I don't want to be overly critical and overly harsh on these novels anymore because I don't think I'm giving them a fair shot. But I will talk a little bit about the books that I read, even if they were YA. Just know that you might want to take my opinion with a grain of salt, knowing my bias, or at least how I'm feeling right now. But anyway, Bluescreen by Dan Wells is set in the near future in, I believe, California. I know it's on the West Coast. And we follow the main character. I believe her name is Maria. And she lives with her family, and they're part of like an upper class of society. In this world, there's a clear delineation between the rich and the poor, the haves and the have-nots, and she has. And so she's part of a social group, a gaming group that enjoys cyberspace. She's well adept with technology and computers. She feels a little bit like a Mary Sue to me. You know, she just seemed to know how to do all the things. And if she didn't know how to do, she had a friend who was able to do the things, you know, computer magic kind of stuff. So that was an issue for me. I also am not a fan of the rich girl learns how to slum it trope. And then that's where she finds there's value in other types of people and other classes of society. I'm not a fan of that. It reminds me a lot of Emma, Jane Austen's Emma, because Emma is my least favorite Jane Austen novel for that reason. I'm just not a fan of the character Emma. I just find her too frustrating for me. But I was getting similar vibes from this character as well. It also reminded me a lot of M.T. Anderson's Feed. And I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that Dan Wells copied this. I'm not making that assertion at all. But I found that as I was reading or listening to this, I kept thinking about Feed. And so I'm wondering if there are some parallels that can be drawn between the two characters in this discussion of technology in the near future and things of that nature. I probably gave Bluescreen two stars. I don't think I would have given it any more than 2 stars. And I think I did write a review on Goodreads. So if I leave the link down below, you can find that review. The next book that I read, I do have a copy of. It's The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. And I am super proud of this book because I got it autographed. Brandon Sanderson came to Kansas City for like our comic book convention. Let me find this autograph. Cheese and bread. Where did it go? I'm going to find it. Yes, here it is. Isn't that cool? Yeah, so I was super excited to meet him and get my copy of The Emperor's Soul autographed by him. And then I read it soon after I got it signed. I really enjoy it. It's a tiny little book, and Brandon Sanderson is known for writing very lengthy stories. I mean, just look at the Way of Kings books. But this is very, very tiny. You can read it in like a weekend. And for its brevity, oh, I'm sorry, my phone's binging. but for its brevity, it tells a very complete and satisfying story. It's the story of Shia, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correct. Gayatona, we'll go with that. Shia is an artist, but she's also a forger. She's an art forger. And Gayatona is a political figure. He works in politics in this world. And so she lives in a very morally gray world. He lives in a very morally black and white world. And it's interesting to see how these two characters work and come together. I would say of all of his novels, and I have not read everything that by Brandon Sanderson, but I feel like this is the most character-driven story that I've read of his, and I liked it a lot. It is magic light and it is world-building light, so a lot of people enjoy Brandon Sanderson for his world-building and definitely for his magic system. This gives like a tinkling of magic. There is a bit of world-building. I did not feel at all that the characters were kind of floating or in a non-space. They were grounded and rooted in space and time, but it just didn't feel like it was necessary or essential to what was happening. What was forefront and what was our focus was the characters, and he did a wonderful job with developing these two characters and showing how these two characters' world views kind of came together to solve a particular problem and to work on a task together. I think I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. Would recommend it to anyone. The next book that I read is Illuminae, and I have a copy of that one. I think this is the last one I have a copy of. Yeah, Illuminae. I am late to this bandwagon. I read it because I, again, have seen so many booktubers talk about this series. This is the only one that I've read in the series. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue, just because of what I said before about YA literature. This hit all, like I said, all the YA tropes, but I did enjoy this a bit more because it's unique storytelling, and I'm sure that you are aware of this, but it's told, excuse me, the story is told through memos, letters, emails, chat room discussions, and things of that nature. So the narrative structure was intriguing enough that it kept me interested throughout the story. I did really like the AI character in this story. I was upset at what happened at the end a little bit, but I did thoroughly enjoy this AI character and would love to see more of this character. So maybe I should read it. I don't know. Maybe you guys let me know down below if I should continue reading this series or not. I have heard that it kind of gets a little less interesting the more you go, but maybe if you leave me a comment, I'll pick it up again. But yeah, like I said, I enjoyed the narrative structure and the unique way it told the story. I'm calling this ephemera narrative, and if I'm wrong, tell me what to call it in the doobly-doo down below. Next book that I read is Interworlds by Neil Gaiman and Michael Reeves. This is an interesting, I think it's like middle grade story. I listened to this on audio. It tries to meld together fantasy and science fiction in one story. It is a story of a young boy whose name escapes me at the moment, and I don't see it in my notes, so not a great note taker. There we go. But I think his name is Jake. We'll go with that. But this main character, he realizes that he has the ability of walking in between worlds, and so he finds worlds where he exists, but in various formats. So there's worlds where he's a female, and there's worlds where he's a male, and then there's worlds where he has, oh, poor cat. Then there are worlds where he has wings, and there's worlds where he's an android. And so it mixes fantasy and science fiction in this one story, and the villains, I believe, come from both worlds, but in this particular book, because I think it's a series, I haven't read it on, but in this series, the villains are trying to make all worlds fantasy worlds. And then I believe there's other villains in later stories where they try to make all worlds science fiction worlds. And so it's trying to find that balance between the two is what the novels and the main character's goal is. I'm going to stop here because I'm running low in my camera space, and I think this is a good place to stop, and I'll finish this up in a third video. Okay, guys, bye.